Good afternoon. It's November 11th, 2012, and today we're just looking at a range day. You can see we closed a bit above the overnight highs. I'm sure on the daily chart this looks like a bullish bar, but it's looking pretty much just like a range. So not a whole lot of trades. We'll take a look at them, but not a lot of high probability ones really. So 7 o'clock, or no, 5 o'clock comes in right about here, and it's looking a bit sideways. We get this failed second entry short right here, but you're going into this level of resistance, which I think it'd be a little difficult to take that trade. I mean, we just tested it once, twice, so you're going into a third time. I marked it blue because it looks good, but you can see, and there's enough space for a scalp, but you can see it didn't go much further than that. And then you get this lower high, but I think there you might be chancing it. I marked it green because it looks like we're in a range, and I thought maybe we would test these lows, but really we just bounced at the midline of the overnights. So if you took it on the engulfing bar, 78.75. So you have 5 perfect ticks back to the midline. And once it bounces there, really once it bounces here, it looks like we're ranging. But once it bounces off this midline, you gotta sit out. And we take this lower high, and you get this sort of spike in channel down here. This is the channel I originally had off of these highs. And so you get a break and a leg down, and then you get a first entry, second entry short. I like the way that's set up in real time to test these lows. You can see it bounced off the highs of this bar right here, but then it went lower. And yeah. I don't think there's any way you really would have had this trend channel until, well, I guess you could just take it off of this low and this low, but I think in real time it'd be tough to have that channel. Then we go below the overnight lows, and you might take one of these because it's a breakout of a range, but it's risky. It's very risky. So you can see a lot of people like that. That formed a spike and channel up before some type of news item here, and we're just chopping people up here. So you got to stay out. Come down here, you get a higher low, and you get a failure up here, but it's just in the middle of the range, and it's far from the EMA, so you can't take that. Get a break, 2 legs up to a new high before it reverses, and you don't get a good reversal setup. This is a failure right here, but it's not off a trend line. It's kind of like a doji, and we're really just chopping back and forth. So I think I have to mark that green and not red. And then technically this is a second entry, but it's not off a trend line. And here, let's see, maybe. Yeah, it's not off a trend line, so it's just too risky, I think, because there's not a whole lot of room down here. You might take it. I'll mark it green. And then we're just chopping around. And so you get this second entry and a higher low. Maybe you consider that, thinking we might test these highs, and we fail to test those highs. You got a failure right here, and it looks like that would trap some people, so maybe you consider that, but I just don't like it because it's a failure in a range. We get this leg down, break, move to a new low. Then you get this second entry right here, but it's a doji above the EMA, so it's not a good place to go short. We get a second leg down to a new low below the overnight lows, And again, maybe you take one of these, but not a high probability setup. And then it turns out we were in this larger channel working up. So perhaps you would have had this drawn off the lows. And if you did, that's a higher low. First entry, second entry, we get a higher low, extremely bullish bar. It also looks like maybe it's breaking back into a range. Not really, that's kind of a stretch, but it looks like maybe you're breaking back into a range right here. So you might take that one. Then we form this range up here. Breaks out to the low side. You get a failed second entry short. That's also just looks like a higher low back into this range. And a lot of people like that. Takes us up. You get a break of this. You get first entry, second entry. And this actually would have failed on you. But look at that signal bar. It closes beneath the EMA. It's got a lot of stem. But when you get this low, or would it have failed on you, or is that a matching low? Okay, so that would have worked. Not crazy about that one, though, because it's just in no man's land. But when you get that double test, matching low, maybe you consider going long there. And we break above the overnight highs. It holds prices for a little bit, goes a little higher, and then we go lower. And maybe you take that one. Really, I wouldn't be playing this so much. I would probably be playing this. And then you can see breaks out to the high side, fails to the low side. So the problem there is it closes right at the midline. But you might risk that. And we get a breakout pullback. I'm going to test it a couple times before it goes higher. But here you're going into the highs. I don't think you want to take any of those. Here you get a second entry and a higher low. This actually looks like the actual second entry, but again, you're going into the highs, and by this time, you should have this larger channel drawn. So you're really close to the highs of the channel. Just not a great trade. And then we get this really nice move down to the low end of the channel. It bounces, and you just don't get anything. Here's a first, second entry, but it's below the EMA, so it's risky. And that's all I saw today. So I'll be back Monday. Hope everyone has a great weekend.